Alright, so here we go. We're going to paint a sunset on a beach. So what I want to do first is I want to wet the layer. Okay. I'm going to grab my acrylic slash express oils brush here. I want a little bit of a purplish and ultramarine, so I'm going to grab some of this cobalt violet. And I'm going to bring this up and just kind of stroke this in here and there. Grab a little bit of phthalo, a little bit of that in as well. Ultramarine blue. Kind of come around over here. Cadmium red. Like so. Maybe just the slightest touch of yellow in here. And then go back to a little bit. Let's grab a little of this magenta. Quinacridone. And then I want to grab Alt, select that right there, Alt, select that right there. Our sun's going to be right about here, kind of peeking around. Grab a little bit of that orangish color. Come across there, a little bit here. Maybe just a little bit up through here. Grab a little bit of that color as well. Okay, now I'm going to push in. Go to my blending tool. I'm going to bring that up in size. And then I'm going to blend out from my lighter to my darker. Like so. I want this kind of to have a curve to it and then kind of shallow out down here. Like so. Okay. So that's going to give me that kind of a look for it. And I'll tell you what, I may even duplicate it to just kind of saturate those colors and then merge it down. Yeah, I think that'll work. Okay. I'm going to bring in some, kind of brush this towards the middle a little bit. There we go. So now I'm going to grab a little bit of this color here, and I'm going to go ahead and stick with my express oil, but I'll bring the size down. Something like that. And I'm going to do this on a separate layer. So I'm just going to kind of get a shape of where I want to kind of have have, and I'm just doing this real soft so that it kind of fades out. I want to use this to kind of break up and make it look like some clouds and stuff. So push in again, bring this way down, and then just kind of soften it back and forth to keep some of those shapes like so. Soften this here at the bottom. So just softening that out so that it kind of fades back into it, like so. Okay. Doing a little bit more on the sides here. So maybe it's not quite so harsh. Alright. So now I'm going to go back to my brush. Going to bring that in a little bit more, like so. Just a few splotches here and there that I want to kind of soften out. Like so. Okay, something kind of like that. Swirl it a little bit and soften it out. Something like that. So again, something like that. Now, I want to come back to here. I'm going to grab a little bit of this kind of peachish color here. And I want to carry across kind of a swooping cloud that kind of comes up like so. And then back to N. And come across. Like so. Maybe even go a little bit bigger so I can soften it a little bit more. Something like that. And then just kind of go over it and really kind of soften it into the background. So that that blends a little bit more into it. Like so. Now I want to grab a little bit of this color and kind of come across here. And maybe down through here. Back to the smaller one. like that. And again, just kind of softening it out. So that it kind of vignettes. Where our sun's going to be. Okay, something like that. Now I want to grab, you'll notice I'm going over here and hit the color. You should be able to press Shift A and it jumps back to the Express Oils. For me, whatever reason, it keeps kind of bouncing back to the tool that I was just using, like the blending tool. So I don't know why it's doing that. I need to check the support page and see if there's anything there that says anything about it. So I'm going to grab this color here, bring that across, like so. And so you can see this is a lot of just kind of working across with the blending tool and the Express Oils to kind of build it up. Because we're just doing it in layers. Now this would be the same thing if you're using like oils or acrylics with, you know, retarder or something like that in it, then you could use it to blend it out. Okay, now I'm going to take my eraser tool. I'm going to erase a little bit of this too, because I don't like how that's necessarily smudging up in there. It's a little bit too much. So I'm just going to kind of sculpt these clouds a little bit. Just real light. Could even lower the opacity down if I'm not wanting to fight the eraser so much. Kind of do the same over here. Just so they don't end so bluntly, so rounded. Hopefully that makes sense. Just trying to make these look wispy going across. Something kind of like that. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. I just want to erase some of this and have it really fade back. Like that. Okay. And I think I'm going to bring it up here. Do a little bit of the same. Kind of cut some of those clouds in a little bit. Kind of give it a little bit of texture. And then I'm going to come back and kind of soften it in the direction of that texture. Like so. And just kind of fading these off into one another, because this is really all still kind of the underpainting. Okay. So now this kind of color here is kind of purplish, purple, orangish kind of color. I'm gonna grab that. Bring this up. Actually, I'm going to do this on a separate layer. Bring this up a little bit. I want to make my horizon line. I want this to be very straight. Oops. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw some color in here to get rid of this lighter color. Like so. Okay. Now I'm going to grab some of this color here. Just kind of streak it across. Like so. Just thinking about the waves kind of coming in like this. So something like that. And then just kind of streaking in some color. And you can really sell the perspective by kind of keeping these lines right here so that everything is kind of receding back like so. Grab a little bit of this darker color, kind of streak it in. Like so. Now I have ocean water stencils that I made because this is rather time consuming. And I know some people are like worried they can't paint it. So you can use the stencils if you want. There is nothing wrong with that. It's literally just a matter of building up the texture of the water, and it's kind of this little banana shape that you're doing. Okay. So if you think about this water, it's going to be rolling in like this. Okay. So if you think about that, you can do a mixture of over and under. And just kind of crisscross it back and forth. Keeping that these lines are all receding back that way. So they're all kind of doing this. Because all of this is going to be pushing its way in. So you want it to have that kind of ocean feel. So you can have as much or distinct of these lines as you want. Or you can have as little as you want. Okay, so if you want to go in and put these lines and then kind of come back and start doing your smear. Now you'll notice with this, I've not picked this up, so it's just kind of taking the color that's there and blending it. Now the problem with this is that if I do something I don't like, I can't Control Z it. If I just keep laying it in though, I can just keep sort of doing it. Now the thing with this here is that not only are these going back, these need to be going flat. Okay, so if you want to keep doing that, you definitely can, but like I said, in my stencil pack I have water, okay, this one, which I use mostly for sun ripples coming across, like a still water or something. Okay, so I'm going to turn off that. I'm going to really stretch this out and lay it flat. I'm going to border it so I don't have to worry about going through it. And now all I'm going to do is come in here and kind of smear it across. And then move it. Kind of smear it across. And just really keep moving it around. So that I can get that look, and you'll see how it puts those little lines in there. So stencils are just time savers, you know. And the way that I use them is I paint one once, get it the way I like it, or usually I'm painting something else, I get it the way I like it, and I make a stencil out of that because I'm like, oh, I like how that looks, so I make a stencil of it. So that way I don't have to keep trying to repaint it over and over, but instead I can just kind of keep using the stencil to give me the look that I want and save some time. And then, like I said, I know a lot of people, they get hung up on whether or not they can draw something, and those stencils just kind of help give the foundation so they don't have to keep thinking about it as much. Just like so. And then as you get these put in here, you can also switch back to the eraser if you want to erase some stuff. Well, you could if you put it on a separate layer like I normally do, but I didn't. So I wasn't thinking about it. So all I got to do is go back to my original color, bring my brush size way down. I can look for anything I can break up. With these. And then as these get further back, they just kind of blend in more. You still have some of the texture, but it just kind of flattens out and goes together like so. Okay, so you want to keep building this up, and then what you'll do is you can come back to this darker color right here, and then what I want to do is go into here, come down even darker, and then from there I could kind of start adding in like where some waves could be crashing in. Like so. And maybe crashing down here, and then keep kind of switching back and forth to blend it and make those troughs, because we're looking down on it, so it's going to be kind of far off in the distance and have some indication of stuff, but not, not a whole lot of detail. Okay. I want this to really be kind of smeared in. So remember, this has got to fade off, so it's got to get smaller as it goes away from you. Again, just those little bananas that start to flatten out as you get further and further away. And again, just kind of pick up some of the ones around it, pick up some of the softer color around it. And just start laying it in there. You can go back and pick up some of that purplish color. Kind of just keep laying it in there together, like so. Again, you can just kind of soften it. The key to it here is just trying to keep these troughs, fairly horizontal. Even though they're still swooping back and forth, you want the overall effect to be horizontal and receding back. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the same purple. We're going to go down to wash it out a little bit and come up to where it's a little bit brighter. And then from there, we can start laying in where some of the foam would be. And this is just a matter of kind of splotching it in. Let me just reduce the size of my paintbrush. But see how as you build the layers, it starts giving you that context for what it is, and starts giving you that feeling of, oh, this is foam, oh, these are waves, oh, this is, and it just takes time to build it up and patience, because you're going to hit a spot while you're doing this. And honestly, I find that I do it with a lot of paintings, that you're just going to have that spot where you're like, oh, this sucks, I quit. But don't quit, just keep laying it in there. Even if you finish it and you're like, like you're just, I'm done, I'm finished, and you're like, I don't like it, that's fine, you still learned something. That's the important part, because your next one's going to be better, and then your next one's going to be better, then your next one's going to suck, and then your next one's going to be better, because you're always going to kind of go back and forth on how you think they look and how you think they go together, and some of them will suck, some of them will be good. I mean, I have plenty of paintings that I go through where I'm like, finish it up, and I'm like, no, it's lousy. And it never sees the light of day. Nobody ever sees it but me, and that's okay. The whole point is that you're practicing properly, and by practicing properly, what that means is that you're working on different skills and different things, that you're building good habits of painting. You're working on your composition, you're working on your colors, you're working on all of that, giving yourself permission to play around. And as you work on all that, you'll have things that you experiment with, things that you do, and you'll have things that just simply don't work. But if you give yourself that permission to play around with it, then you give yourself permission to learn and fail, and grow, and experience things and move forward. Because nobody just ever jumps right into painting and creation and is 100% perfect out the gate. I mean, maybe there's that weird one savant somewhere that can do it, but it's not a common thing. But see how that's all starting to come together, and it's all starting to give that feeling of foam and receding back into the background. But that gives you that feeling that the waves are pushing off into the distance. Like so. And the great thing about digital painting is that you're not wasting anything. You're not wasting any paint. I mean, honestly, I would say that you're never really wasting anything, but you get what I mean. It's not a precious piece of expensive paper, or expensive inks or paints or oils or whatever. It's just pixels that you can paint around with, and if you don't like it, you delete it, or you save it and come back to look at it later to see how far you've changed. I mean, I look at stuff just 5-10 years ago and I'm like, ugh. So that's the key, is just give yourself permission to play, permission to move stuff around. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to turn the opacity down on this. I'm going to Alt select that. And I'm going to just bring that down even more. Grab some of this purple here. Okay. And then in. Now I'm going to go over here and change this selection tool to freehand. And then Control D. What I want to do is kind of roughly go along the edge here. Like so. Now I'm going to go with N. And pretty much going straight up and down. I'm going to brush this in here. I'm also going to delete that. I'll come back and fix that later, but trying to stay fairly vertical. Getting a little bit brighter as I get down here. And fairly darker as I get down here. Again, in. Just softening it, but keeping that vertical feel. Like so. Okay. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of this darker color here. I'm going to come way down. I'm going to go along here. And just kind of darken it along the edges. Like so. And again with the N, bringing it down this one, I'm going to go horizontal. Like so. And then kind of push some of that like so. I'll come back and clean that up more, but I want to get some of that idea laid in there. So Control D. Delete. Control D. So there we go. That gives us a good underpainting for this, a good underpainting for this. Now I want to kind of obliterate some of this area. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to keep my drawing there. And I'm going to just kind of come up to here. Like so. I'm going to make sure this is on add to. And then I'm just going to give the feel of some tree limbs and maybe some palm trees. And all I'm doing is going back and forth and scrubbing these in. Just some shapes that we'll use to kind of define some of this. I'm also going to come out here and I'm going to add a few rocks. Maybe something right here. Maybe something right here. Nope. We'll see. I think that would be a little too on the nose. But just a few things. Something like that. Maybe something like that. Alright, now I want to grab some of this oxide of chromium, which is kind of a nice green. And I'm just going to kind of smear this in. Then I'm going to take a little bit of this bone black and kind of smear it in. I may even go to a rough wet brush. Kind of smear it in. Grab a little bit of alt to grab some of this greenish color. Throw some of that in. Come back to my blending brush. Let's go with this textured one. Just kind of something like that. And then let's go to this bone black. Just kind of throw these rocks in. Like so. And while we've got those selected, I want to add just a hint of lighting. So I'm going to bring this way down. Kind of lay in some of this color in. Way down. Alt. And I actually have a rock stencil, rock texture stencil that I use. That I really love to use. Here, let me show it to you. But you can use any of these, like this waterfalls. So for example, if I wanted to use these waterfalls, I can go here, turn off lock ratio, smush it, stretch it, flip horizontal, rotate, take some of that, some of this lighter color. And kind of quickly throw in doesn't like moving with my stylus. So just, and you can see, like, this is one of my waterfall stencils, but by just moving it around and stuff, I can get some nice textures on there, and I can come back and refine these, and I will, because right now I have to seat them into the water and give a shadow and put some of that foam coming around it and stuff like that, but it quickly lays in a texture and gives me an idea of, is this what I like? Okay, so now you can see a little bit more of where we're going with all of this. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add in some clouds here. We're going to refine this area here, and then we're going to add and refine these as well. So I'm going to save this real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay, so we've got a good underpainting done here, and now we can start kind of putting some of the icing on the cake and start kind of honing some of this in. So I'm going to jump down to my clouds here, and I may go ahead and just create another layer. And now what I want to do is kind of start adding some drama here. Okay, so I'm going to take this bright yellow. First I'm going to take this bright orange. And I've got the knife smooth. Bring the bracket key down. And what I'm going to do is just start coming across and lightly adding in some streaks here. I want this to kind of come across from maybe right about here, maybe down and across, like so. I'm just lightly scrubbing this end back and forth. That kind of builds up the color. Okay. Got that. I'm going to take the blending tool and just real lightly go over some of this and kind of soften it. Because I do want some of the roughness of it, but at the same time I want to kind of soften it out where it'll be a good underpainting for the clouds. Grab a little bit of this dark purple. Kind of scrub that in as well. And so I've got the opacity set pretty low. It's set to 15. Because I'm trying to let this build itself up. Back to the blending brush just to soften it. Grabbing some of this yellow. Bring my So I want to bring it down in the value so that I can change the value a little bit lighter. Oranger. The opacity up on this. Opacity up and make the size a little smaller. And this is just kind of some jagged lines back and forth. And you can take the blending tool. Let's zoom in a little bit here. So the blending tool on the top. Actually, probably bring that size way down. So primarily I want it on the top, blending it out so that I keep that crisp edge. But occasionally I can soften it on the bottom if I'm going to go back and highlight it some more. Like so. Just go back to the color again. Just kind of start laying that in there. And some of these edges just kind of carried across. Make a few stragglers maybe. Like so. Can go back to this orange a little bit and come down to kind of a peachy color. And kind of bring that in as well. Maybe besides some of the yellow. Just kind of lightly bring it across. Like so. Okay. And then again, soften. Zoom out to kind of get a look for it. That's a peachy color. All I did was switch blending brushes. Just wanted to go. Just kind of softening it here and there. Zoom out a little bit. See how it looks. Color here. Throw a few stragglers up in here. Across. Really soften these out so they're wispy. Like so. I'm going to give a little bit of the same texture. So it's just kind of softly blending across. Now what I want to do is put one more layer here. Over to my tool here, my selection tool. Like so. Grab a little bit of this color. Say maybe something like this. Just kind of smear some color in. And come across, I'll make this a little bit darker. I want it to kind of fade. Gives the implication of some texture and light kind of coming across. And come back down. Grab the airbrush. So I want to take a little bit of this orange. Computer's lagging. Kind of bring this across. Trying to soften some of that back in there. So, helps pull some of it together. Go back to our express oils. Kind of soften it. So there we go with those. So I'll come right above this layer, make a new one. Grab this darker color, and bring it across like so. And what I'm doing here is I want to give the implication of, like where the sand's a little drier, like the water's been absorbed into it. Just softening that and keeping these horizontal lines. Like so. Alright, like that. And then on this water, we're going to start refining some of it. I'm going to grab kind of this peachy color, bring it way down. And like I said, if you wanted to use stencil, definitely could. And again, the stencils I just like to use to kind of save some time and to quickly add that texture. You can go in and hand paint it, but using the stencil just kind of saves you some of that effort. But for these forward ones, you probably want to go in and just kind of hand paint. The contours of the wave, so that you really get that sweeping motion. Like so. Getting a little bit brighter towards the edge here. Okay. Now I want to grab this dark color. I want to go even a little darker, like so. And now I want to come up here to the top. Same for over here. You've really got those troughs of water. Okay. Now we can go back with a small, just kind of, again, following the contours. So kind of sweeping down the wave. Like so. Excuse me. I just want to add some dark splotches here and there because I'm going to put foam over top of this, so I need to have a little bit more light show. Like this. I'm just gonna like this in here to kind of vignette some of the ocean. Turn it so that I've got these lines kind of following the shore. Ever so softly. Then come back with the blending tool. So I'm kind of pulling them across horizontal. Like so. And I do have other ones. I have like this wave one here. Which actually I've got a whole bunch more. I just don't have them imported into here. Excuse me. So it's really kind of up to you how much you want to spend on the waves. And remember, you can always take the eraser tool too. Kind of erase back some of that darkness to give the feeling of the water foaming and twisting and turning. Like so. So it's just that kind of subtle build-up. Alright, now I want to take this, come down a little bit brighter. Actually, I want to go a little bluer. Just kind of start scrubbing in. Some foam. Like so. Actually, I'm going to jump this up a layer. We've got the rock layer. So I can kind of foam around these rocks a little bit. You can zoom in to kind of see it a little better. And this is really just kind of a mess of squiggly lines. Change it from just kind of wrapping around the shadow. I can go with rough wet. Get some of this lighter color. Hold on, let me just go over here and select it. So again, just kind of softly going with where the foam kind of fall across. And these aren't the big, crashing surfing waves. These are just kind of coming across waves. Kind of a rough foam. Just kind of fade it back. Kind of the key here is just to keep going, building up the texture. So it's like you leave some rough, you leave some smooth. But you want it to start leveling out and being horizontal across here. And you can switch to these different ones. Play around with the knives over here with these brushes and get the ones that you like. This is not so much about the brush to do it, but just the technique of messing around with it. Foam always kind of spider webs up the wave a little bit, so having these different pockets, light and dark, just kind of spider webbing up here and there. And then going back and soften it a little bit, again, keeping to the contour of the wave. Like so. And have this back edge kind of smear out. But just leave these little pockets here and there of texture and of foam and so forth. But you just want, if you put a few out here, that's fine. But don't throw a bunch out here. You want them more towards the front. Kind of where it shows the breaking surf. And again, make sure that you don't come all the way around the rock, because then it'll look weird. Just kind of softly go back. These are going to get more solid. Get you that nice edge, trying to keep it horizontal with your strokes. I want a little bit more of this towards here, because it kind of helps bring it towards the see, that kind of helps pull you towards that direction. Excuse me. I'm going to add just a little bit more of a edge here. It kind of gives that feeling of the water's really kind of receding. And that's going to get closer. Cut across. Maybe just a little bit more here and there. And maybe soften it slightly. Like so. So now on these rocks, since I'm on this layer above these rocks, I can go ahead and do it here. Just remember that I'm above them. Zoom this in a little bit. All I'm doing here is just kind of softening this harsh edge. Take this down into the water a little bit. Grab some of this darker side. Just kind of refine this shape a little bit. Same for this one. Kind of take this one down into the water a little bit. And I just don't want that crisp edge from the selection tool. I want more of an organic shape, or edge, I should say. And put a few here and there. And grab a little bit of this lighter color. Come across it again. If you just kind of do this a little bit faster, and by faster I mean just kind of put it and leave it, it'll give you more of that rock sensation. Bring this down here a little bit. Give it a little bit of that shallowness. Like so. Just something fairly simple like that. Box one here. Pebbles. Border this real quick. Now that all I want to do is add some soft texture. Coming across. Like so. Backspace to get rid of it. And And then going horizontal, softening these and kind of smearing them a little bit. Just kind of adds a really soft and subtle texture. Give that feeling of stony, rocky, sandy beach. Okay, so there we got that. So let's work on this big green blob. So I think the first thing I want to do is come back to my selection tool, kind of zoom in, and let's draw some more like fern looking things. And make sure we've got it on add to. And these are just little back and forth lines. Like so. That and that. Like that. But I also realized I'm not on the same layer. I'm still on this water layer. So I'm just going to cut those. Run those down. So now they're all on the same layer except for that little ghosting that I have left on the top one, which that's easy to get rid of. Just go to selection tool, select the area, delete it, Control D, and back down to my layer. So I can go to my ink tool, making sure that the water's down. Bring my size way down. And I'm using this one because you can get the nice tapers. Alright. So now I've got tree stencils and grass that I could use here, but probably the only one that I would want to would be something like this one. And the reason is that I want to give this a real kind of splotchy look. But let's look and see if we go to maybe our spatter brushes. We can start building up some interesting look. That's got a lot of water in it, which we can use, but let's soften it. So I could come in here and kind of throw that around in there and get that kind of neat look. Control click on the layer and I select the layer. So I'm going to zoom out like so. And I just want this to add some texture. Like so. I'll press D and Shift D to dry it. Go a little darker. Okay. So something like that. I want to break this up a little bit. So I think I want to maybe have a little path that's going to disappear. Oh, I forgot I still have it on additive, not replace. Control D. So like I said, maybe a little path is off. And through there. Brown. Let's switch this. Just kind of smear that in there a little bit. Go with a little bit of the softer. And just kind of go back and forth a little bit to add some of that in there. And then something like this. Green. Oxide of Control D. Just start let's go with a rough wet, kind of like we did the foam down there. We can start kind of laying this in to soften it back out. Because remember, this is really heavy in shadow, so we don't need a lot of definition. Okay, that's why I was saying, you know, if you wanted to go with something like this for the bushes and stuff, you definitely could. And for example, lay that in there, take the blending tool, soften it. And you can start adding some really subtle textures. Okay, I'm going to do Shift D to make sure that's dry. So you can do that. You can also grab like some of these noisy soft brushes. Kind of use that to smush it around. Let's go down to the filbert. Just kind of tap in, soften it down. Go to the eraser with the spatter. Kind of cut through some of this up here. Not that much. Bring that opacity down. I may not be able to do this. My computer's lagging so bad I can't get it to do what I'm trying to do. The downside of using my recording software. So I come back to the brush, the filbert. Let's go a little bit softer, different green. And now this is one of those things. So if you're going to paint trees, like if you don't want to use the stencils and you're going to paint the trees, okay? You'll want to bring this way down and just kind of tap in the shapes of what you're looking to create, like the bushes and so forth. Making sure to leave pockets of dark, like in through here. So in other words, if I was going to do this, I would skip up and make another little bush. Maybe soften it a little bit so it fades into the background some. Like so. Back to it. Like so. And then you can take some of this darker and again kind of break up the crisp line that is. You can even do that with the pencil. So like if you wanted to come in and add some tree limbs and so forth. So I'm going to grab, because I don't want to spend forever sitting here with this, and show you guys some different things. I'm going to grab one of these trees, maybe this ash tree, bring the size down, turn it a little bit, zoom in. So all I'm doing is kind of catching the edges to again break up some texture. This does not have to be super well defined. If you want to, you can. If you want to spend a lot of time and define it in here, go for it. I tend to like the more impressionistic kind of feel. So I'll just kind of splotch some of these in. Like so. And it starts to give me an interesting look. I can take another one. Go to more yellowish green. And come back to my filbert. Kind of lay it in there. Kind of like so. I could also, once I've got kind of that underlying texture, I can do kind of what I was talking about a minute ago, which is come in and kind of add taps. I could use the pencil or the charcoal. so. I could even come back with the darker green and add in some of that dark. Break it up. Kind of think about how I'm kind of reverse painting and adding in shadow to define where some of those leaves are. Like so. And then again, just kind of, could change. Go with a little bit softer. Dots one. But again, the key to this over here is just to play back and forth with the textures. So that you get some interesting shadows and some interesting high points. And what I'm doing right now is just kind of breaking up some of these larger spaces. With just some texture and darker color. Again, it's really in shadow, so don't need a whole lot of lighter green or anything put on it. And if you make it too light, it's going to be a distraction. See, I just moved the stencil around and used the edges of it for what I need. To change my layer order there for a second. I could use this tree, and I won't to. let's use it to kind of push some of this road back. Kind of like that. Some. There we go. Now I would like to take some of this lighter green, kind of define grass is coming over these bushes. So just real soft. Maybe just kind of lay in some contours. Kind of flatten out this top up here. It comes around like this. Pebbles. So I'm just kind of softening this off into grass so it kind of lays there a little more. I want to throw a little bit of this brown in here. Maybe indicate where some dirt mounds are. So it breaks up this green too. Okay. Towards a yellowish green. Now let's just add. I have to go to a separate layer to do this because this is going to add some of these darker lines. Because the ink kind of multiplies itself as it goes over other paint. But that's okay for a little bit. This is very, very subtle. If we go to a new layer, we can add other tufts of grass. And kind of soften it. apparently, when I drew this in with the selection tool, I left a little bit of the area down here undone. Merge that down, layer. So again, I just want to break up these edges. And I think for this right here, I'm going to turn that into a rock, because I want that to kind of mimic. So let's maybe back, and we'll erase some of it. So we're going to get kind of this scraggly rock. Just kind of bring this down like so. Dark color. I want to keep these lines fairly vertical, like so. I can even grab my stencil here. Like so. Just add a little bit of that. Let's take some of that, come back. This kind of bluish gray, not too bright. Still that. It's going to give a nice difference of color there. Kind of separate it out. What I want is the spatter brush again for the erasing. That gives a little interesting texture to those rocks and lets some of that background color peek through. Like so. Which I think gives a bit more interest, and then we can kind of soften it in like so. And come back up to here with the ink brush. Take a little bit of that.
kind of seat these behind the grass. Now that I've got some of those in there, I want to kind of soften the bottoms to have them blend kind of in. Like so. And this bush. Kind of lay in some leaves and flowers. And again, all I'm doing here is I want to add some extra texture into here, so some bush texture, to just kind of break up some of this grass. And so if you want to go in and add more leaves and more detail, you can. I just want a little bit of something there. Merge that down. So it just kind of breaks up that monotony of that grass, and then I can go back in and add a few blades to kind of seat that. And a layer so I can get that kind of greenish look that I want. I can add in some more things to break up the bush texture. Bring the size down. Like that. Now what I'd like to do, cadmium red, is switch over to my watercolor brush, bring the water way down, maybe add a few splotches of, to kind of give the feel of, maybe there's some
flowers out here. Phthalo green. So something like that. Okay. So now one more layer here. I'm going to change this one to overlay. Come over to our airbrush. A little bit of this white. Get that a little bit more brightness. Just a few streaks here and there to kind of like the sun streaking out across everything. Bring that out a little bit more. Okay. So I think that's a good place to stop. I think that's going to give you a lot of things to work on. Hopefully you got something out of this as I went through it, and you can kind of see some of the decisions that I made here and there. And again, you can play around with this quite a bit once you want to start adding in, you know, some of your bright spots and things that you want to really punch up a little bit, like maybe some of these clouds here. You could even, you know, some of the waves down here, really catch some of that sparkle. You know, just however much you want to mess around with it, you can. And this is, but the word of caution, and it's something I have to tell myself not to do, is just don't putter around with it so much that you overwork it. You know, find that stopping point and then, you know, stop. And that's kind of the point I'm reaching with this now, is for me personally, I'm like, okay, I think this is pretty much where I want it. And I could go more and mess around with it more, but then I might overwork it. So give this one a try. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for being here. Bye.